And I am pleased to welcome to the 2025 edition of Statehouse Conversations a familiar face, Shelli Yoder, a Democratic senator from the great city of Bloomington. I say that as a proud IU alum. You're a member of the faculty. And a pastor, and I'm from Miss Indiana. If I list
and a mother.
And a mother. If I list all your titles, we run out of time to talk about anything else. But thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
And I should wait. And let me add one more title: Senate Minority Leader, as of about a month and a half ago. So
not even a month.
Not even a month.
Not even a
so you've got a lot on your plate. How does that translate into what you want to see happen this session?
Well, the Senate Democrat Caucus is excited and ready to go. We've got.
It's also small.
We are the most diverse in experience in what we bring in terms of perspective, talent.
You're still outnumbered 40 to 10, but continue.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe it is the quality of our caucus, which is so superb.
And I will say, sometimes your message discipline has been notable, and maybe it's because the other side has so many factions when you're a supermajority, but I guess this will test your leadership since you're now the role, message discipline is going to be job one for you. And what is that message?
We are focused on families, freedoms, and futures for all Hoosiers. And we have specific legislation that we are prioritizing this year.
Share a few of those, and I'd like to highlight this.
For families, we want to make sure that families have opportunities. One of those areas would be in the way that we fund education. The 90% of our families' kiddos go to traditional public schools, and yet how we are supporting financially our priorities in the budget doesn't reflect that. We keep hearing that we will see a small increase in support of education, but I really encourage people to lean in on where is that money going, because that is going to keep our families back. We need strong schools to support our families and the kiddos in this state.
And that's such an important point. To say you're anyone, RD, Republican, House or Senate, to sit in the chair and say, I'm supportive of K through 12 education now requires an asterisk, because that used to mean one thing, now it means traditional public schools, it means charter schools, which operate without some of the restrictions, of course, and then parochial schools through the voucher program. So you can't, that's the first question. Yes, I support education. And then what's the second question? Are you at risk that, is it an oversimplification to say that public schools are hurting and stand to hurt even more in this?
With thousands of teacher vacancies in traditional public schools, due to the way over the last couple of decades we have underfunded public education, traditional public education. And again, we will hear, look at the dollars spent towards education, but the devil's in the details. We need to see how those dollars are spent. And our caucus, one of our priorities is making sure that teacher pay is brought up in the state of Indiana. I know that just this past week in education, we heard a Senate bill to increase the base of teacher pay to $45,000. And unfortunately, $45,000 in the state of Indiana isn't even a living wage. And you could argue, well, teachers don't work full time. I want you to talk to any teacher, public education teacher, to ask those times where you get a week off. Do you feel that your job is not full-time? Every single teacher will say, my job is full-time. I am planning for the year ahead in the summer. I am constantly updating my curriculum, the syllabus, the manner in which that I have to respond to all of the unfunded mandates that this legislature puts in front of teachers. It's a full-time job, even though we say it's not a full-time job, but
it's sort of like being a part-time legislator, and
that's right.
But you don't shut off the mailbox, close the mailbox, and shut off.
That is right, and our teachers deserve to be paid. So while we support increasing teacher pay, we want to see that that floor raised to at least $65,000.
And one thing before we leave education, because I'm sure there are a few other things on here. When you talk about 90% of students attend public, it used to be 95, and then down. I'm not saying anything taking one side or the other, but there are those who have been the architects of school vouchers who say their goal, they'd love to see 90 become 85, 80, right on down. That's the goal. So is this about maintaining 90% of people in public schools, or is it more about dollars? I mean, it's a nuanced question, but I wonder, it's more about, are you more worried about the not funding, or the fact that 90% of public schools will be in 4 years, 70%?
I think there are a couple of things, and our caucus has filed legislation to address it, is the lack of accountability and transparency. Ultimately, we are charged with making sure we are good stewards with Hoosier taxpayer dollars. And when we don't have that oversight in how these dollars are spent, I think at the end of the day, the Hoosier taxpayer deserves to know and have transparency in how those dollars are spent at the school level, and you have those transparencies at the traditional public school level. So if we're going to blow it out of the water and have universal choice vouchers, then we need to have across the board some equity in terms of accountability and transparency.
And I guess you would argue the notion of taking all students, not being picking and choosing based on entrance exams and so forth.
And where we are headed, or where we are now, essentially, we are essentially universal vote.
And it
choice
is, I mean, it's
voucher.
95%, now we're throwing percentages around.
Exactly.
And the governor has proclaimed it's a priority, that, and the Republican caucuses, so it's going to happen.
It's
right?
going to happen, but we need to keep in mind that ultimately this choice scholarship program was rolled out to provide opportunities for low-income students, those families. And now we have gone to the real choice will ultimately be those choice voucher recipients, those private schools who could then go back to choosing the student that they want. And that will remove the choice ultimately from our families.
You've been generous with your time. I've already run over the time, much to your staff's dismay and the crew's dismay. But before I let you go, any other things that we should be keeping an eye on that are priorities for you over the next 4 months?
Well, we are also talking about our futures and our freedoms for all Hoosiers, and we are going to be definitely focused every single day. One thing that our caucus knows, and that is Hoosiers work hard, and they deserve a Democratic caucus working hard for them, and that's what we're focused on. Every single bill, every single opportunity that we can bring our very best to serve the best of this state, we will be there fighting for them.
And if every bill you file doesn't start with the letter F in that alliteration, marketing brand, I'm going to be disappointed. What is the future?
I don't know, that could be dangerous, but
I would encourage I'm talking about the alliteration of F.
I would encourage people to go to the IGA website and look at every single bill, and especially with the Senate Democratic Caucus, and see where our priorities are. Our bills match up. All
right, Senator Shelli Yoder, Democratic Senator from Bloomington, and as of less than a month ago, she points out, the Senate's minority leader. Thank you for taking time to chat with us about your priorities for the session. And as I've said to everybody, regardless of partisan stripe or chamber in which they serve, who sat in that chair, thank you for your commitment to Indiana, and thank you for your commitment to public service.
Well, thank you for your commitment to public television and making sure that Hoosiers have the information that they need in order to educate themselves and care for their families the best they can.
Well, democracy is a participatory sport.
Absolutely.
So, thanks so much.